Hey everybody, what's going on? So today I want to talk about importing foreign data sets. And of course I don't mean foreign in terms of coming from another country or something. In this tutorial I want to talk about data sets that come from analysis software that are not RStudio and are certainly not Microsoft Excel. Because if you recall, in all of our previous examples, we've been using Microsoft Excel files to be able to read into RStudio and analyze them. And even more importantly, we've been using those files to perform basic recodes. And so if we've downloaded some kind of file that's coming out here that is not an Excel format, then we're not going to be able to do the kind of find and replace basic recodes that we've been doing. And we won't be able to select the variables that we need and paste them into a new data set to be able to work with them easily. And so if you've downloaded a survey from the internet or something and it's in a weird format, like maybe it's called like a DTA, right? Maybe it's a .rds file, something like that, something like one of these variable, or one of these that are inside of the folder right now. If you see that that's happening, don't worry. RStudio can easily handle this. It can ingest that file using some of the tools that we have at our disposal. We can then manipulate that file to select only the variables we want, the same exact process of copying and pasting the variables over. And then finally, it can spit out an Excel file that will allow us to perform our recodes using find and replace. So it's a very easy kind of two-step process. So the first thing that we want to do, first kind of clear thing we want to do is bring this in. And so if you've got something like a DTA file, you can use import dataset, the same exact way that you would from Excel with the specific software from which it came. So DTA is associated with Stata, SAS files, I think they're just called .sas files, and SPSS, you're going to have .sav files. So if you use some of these kinds of files, you can ingest them very easily using that same tool that we've used. If you've got, for example, an RDS file is actually one of R's native file types. And so we're able to just kind of open it up by just double clicking on it. I guess one thing I'll say is sometimes you won't have this automatically associated with RStudio. So to be safe, you can go down to, right click on an open, go to open with, and you want to select RStudio from the potential list, right? So there's all kinds of these different things. We'll select RStudio from the list. We can say always use this app to open RDS files, and then after that, we're able to just bring those in automatically as R files every time. So this is the entire Wave 6 of the World Values Survey. It's actually 89,565 observations of 440 variables. It's a very large data set because it's got survey respondents from all over the world. And so if I've brought in this World Values Wave 6 into RStudio through that RDS file, I want to make sure that it comes out as an Excel file. And so the first thing to do is, of course, run the the little .r script that I'm going to include in this package. And of course, the first part of this is to make sure that our libraries are all up to speed. So we can run those to make sure they're loaded. So it looks like they are because nothing happened. And then we're going to look at the data. So we've got this thing is called WVS. We've got head we can use. And you can see that with head, we've got a number of different variable names here, but not all of them are listed. You've got this little ... And of course, there's 440 of them. So even this table, which includes many, is actually not including all of them. So one thing I think is very useful to do is to actually look at all of them in a table using this command call names. So if I use call names and run this, you'll see that I end up getting out a list of every single variable name in this entire thing. Now, for the purposes of illustration, I've randomly selected 4 variables from this thing. One thing that you want to make sure you do is, it's actually very helpful if whatever's inside these quotes, copy them. Actually, Control-C and Control-V them. Let's say that instead of 117, I want 122. I don't know, they're the same thing. Whatever these variables are. I did not read the codebook, so I don't know. You want to make sure that you copy those and paste those exactly, because that will prevent you from making any spelling mistakes in the variable names, because these have to be exactly the same when it goes into this little command. And so the way this works is we've basically got 2 sets of commands. We've got select the data set, and then we've got, after this first comma, this whole list of additional comma separated commands, which are the variable names. So I've put these all in here. And I've used this is a tidyverse command, so make sure that tidyverse is installed or else it will not work. We've got this thing, and we're saying, let's select out of World Value Survey these 4 columns. And what that's going to do is it's going to discard everything else. All the other of the 440 variables are going to get thrown away and will result in a data set with only 4 columns. Much easier to work with. And of course, much faster if we're going to, say write this as an Excel file and be able to open it and mess with it in Excel later. That could be useful. Now, of course, the last thing I want to mention about this particular line is that what I'm doing here, what this code is actually doing, is instead of just selecting these things, now if we didn't have this is what R would say. It would read this and it would say, oh, okay, Professor Anson's asking me to select out of world value survey these 4 variables. I will do that. Absolutely. Yes, sir. I will do it. I will select them and I will take them and I'll put them in this box and I'll print them out for you the same way that it's printed out this big list of variable names. I'll give you a big printed list of all these variables. Okay, well that's not useful because that's not creating an object in the data environment which we can later do things with. What we need to do is make sure that we create something by using that equal sign. So we've got world value survey 2 is equal to this function. So take out of world value survey these 4 things and create a new thing called WVS2. So I run this little script. Then you'll see all of a sudden, lo and behold, what pops up is a new thing that I've created called WVS2. And it's got the same number of observations. That's really good to see because we need it to have the same number. It's got 4 variables now instead of 440 because I've only selected these 4. And if I do, head of world value survey 2, we'll be able to see what those columns are called. There we go. We got V92, 122, 150, and 166. Exactly the variables that I specified. Now, the next thing that I want to do, by the way, I don't know what's going on with the formats in here. That's stuff that we'll have to deal with later in Excel. There are clearly some weird miscodes and bad codes in this data set. But that will be something that we'll deal with in the next video. So what I want to do is I've got my RStudio and I want it to spit out a file. But the first thing I want to do is I want to know where RStudio will spit those files out. So I'll use the getwd or get working directory command. I'll run that. And we'll be able to see, oh look, here's the file directory where my stuff goes. So I know that now that it's going to my documents folder. And so that's very helpful to know. Now finally what I'll do is I'll use the write.xlsx function, which comes from this package, xlsx. This is a new package that you have not worked with before. So make sure that if you don't have it, you go up to Tools, Install Packages, and type in xlsx. Make sure that goes in there, that you install it. I won't do that right now because I've already installed it. Make sure that's installed and run. Once you've got it, you can use this command to take the new thing that you created, WVS2, give it a name, make sure that the column names are included, and these row names, these like numbers on the left-hand side of this is not a variable column, it's just some labels. We don't want those. We only want the column titles because they will tell us, again, what our data set actually consists of. So we can highlight this whole thing, we can run it, and we should see in just a little bit, because it might take a moment because of course it's writing 89,000 times 4 observations. Give this just a second. You should see that in the My Documents folder, something's going to drop out. So if I go in here, what do I have here? Soon, hopefully, we'll see this thing get popped out. So again, if it's a big file here, be patient, give it just a minute, and you'll see that it will pop out. I'm also producing videos down here, so my processors are taxed to their maximum right now. So writing data while also uploading videos is going to be pretty hard on it. So we'll wait for that to happen, and gosh, I feel like this is kind of like a cooking video, right? We'll wait for that to happen, we'll give it a little time lapse, and then as soon as it does, we'll be able to pop this open and see the new Excel file that we've created.